What happens when Daniel Craig locks eyes with Sunny Hostin on live television, and neither of them looks away? Before we dive into this explosive moment, make sure you subscribe to Stage View right now, hit that like button, and drop a comment below, because the story you're about to witness isn't just another celebrity interview. It's a collision of pride, politics, and personality that left the studio frozen in silence. The lights inside the View studio are always bright, almost blinding. They're designed to soften faces, smooth tension, make even the sharpest debate feel like midday conversation over coffee. But on this particular morning, the light feels harsher. Hotter. Interrogative. Daniel Craig walks out to polite applause, measured, respectful, slightly restrained. He isn't the loudest man in Hollywood. He isn't flashy. He carries himself with that controlled British reserve, shoulders squared, jaw set in its familiar granite line. The kind of composure that made him the most emotionally layered James Bond of a generation. He takes his seat at the table. Sunny Hostin watches him carefully. There's a smile on her face, but it's not casual. It's analytical. Precise. Sunny is known for that courtroom mind. Trained as a federal prosecutor before becoming one of daytime television's sharpest interrogators. When she asks a question, it rarely floats. It lands. The introductions are cordial. "So good to have you here, Daniel," one of the co-hosts says. "Thank you. It's lovely to be here," he replies, that low voice rumbling steady and polite. They start safe. They talk about his latest film, the grueling shoot, the emotional depth, the physical training at 50+. The audience laughs when he jokes about needing 2 days to recover from running down a staircase. He's relaxed, but Sunny hasn't asked her question yet. She waits, watching, listening. Then it happens. "Daniel," she says, her tone smooth but firmer than before, "you've played powerful, hypermasculine characters for years. Some critics argue that those roles reinforce outdated ideas about masculinity. How do you respond to that?" The air shifts. You can almost hear it. The other co-hosts glance sideways. The audience quiets, not completely, but enough. That specific silence that signals something might be coming. Daniel doesn't react immediately. He leans back slightly, hands clasped loosely in his lap. "Well," he begins calmly, "I think characters reflect the time they're made in. And they evolve." Sunny tilts her head. "But do they evolve fast enough?" she presses. "Because some viewers feel that films like yours still center male dominance as strength." There it is. Not an accusation. Not exactly. But close enough to feel like one. Daniel's jaw tightens just a fraction. A movement so small most wouldn't notice. But the camera does. He locks eyes with her. Not angrily. Not defensively. But directly. And he doesn't look away. "I don't believe strength equals dominance," he says, voice lower now. "I believe strength can be vulnerability. I played Bond as someone who bleeds. Who breaks. Who loves and loses." Sunny leans forward slightly. "But he still kills," she replies. "He still seduces. He still operates inside a system of power." The audience murmurs. This is no longer light promotion. This is a debate. Daniel's expression shifts, not irritation, but intensity. A man who chooses words carefully because he knows they will echo. "It's fiction," he says. "But within that fiction, we tried to show consequences. Emotional consequences." Sunny nods slowly. "And yet," she continues, "fiction shapes culture. Culture shapes behavior." There it is. The thesis. Daniel inhales. And for a moment, just one flicker of a second, you see something behind his eyes. Not anger. Not fear. Challenge. "Are you suggesting," he asks quietly, "that portraying a flawed character means endorsing their flaws?" The temperature in the room drops. Sunny meets his gaze without hesitation. "I'm asking whether Hollywood takes enough responsibility." The camera cuts to the other hosts. One shifts in her seat. Another offers a small, nervous smile. The audience is completely silent now. Daniel leans forward. And that's when it happens. Their eyes lock fully. No blinking. No softening. Two professionals. Two strong personalities. Two people used to command. The kind of eye contact that feels less like conversation and more like chess. "I take responsibility for my choices," Daniel says evenly. "But I don't believe storytelling should be sterilized to avoid discomfort." Sunny doesn't flinch. "And I don't believe questioning storytelling is censorship." A ripple goes through the crowd. There it is, the clash. Not shouting. Not chaos. But something sharper. Respect edged with steel. Daniel's fingers tap, once against the table. A tiny release of pressure. You're a lawyer, he says. You understand nuance. And you're an artist, she counters. You understand influence. The room holds its breath. What makes this moment electric isn't volume. It's restraint. Daniel Craig is known for composure. Sunny Hostin is known for precision. Neither is losing control. But neither is backing down. The moderator tries to lighten the mood. Well, this is getting interesting. A small laugh from the audience, but it's nervous. Daniel's gaze never leaves Sunny. If we only portray perfect people, he continues, we tell dishonest stories. Sunny nods once. But if we romanticize flawed power, she says, we risk normalizing it. There's no shouting. Just two philosophies colliding in real time. The audience is no longer watching a celebrity interview. They're witnessing an ideological standoff. Daniel's voice lowers further. I don't romanticize it, he says. I humanize it. Sunny's eyebrows lift slightly. Sometimes, she says softly, those look the same. And that line lands like thunder. You can feel the ripple, even through a screen. Daniel pauses. A long pause. For the first time, he glances down briefly. Not retreat. Reflection. Then he looks back up. And the intensity is different now. Less defensive. More deliberate. Perhaps, he says slowly, that's where interpretation comes in. We can't control how every viewer receives a story. Sunny's tone softens just slightly. No, but we can talk about it. There's a shift. Not surrender. Not victory. But recognition. Two strong minds acknowledging the complexity. The audience exhales collectively. But the tension hasn't vanished. It's transformed. Daniel gives the smallest hint of a smile. I suppose that's why shows like this exist. A few scattered laughs. Sunny smiles too, but there's still fire behind it. And that's why guests like you make them interesting. Applause breaks out. Not roaring, but sustained. Because everyone in that room knows they've just witnessed something rare. A clash that didn't devolve into chaos. A battle fought with intellect instead of insults. Yet the undercurrent remains. As the segment transitions to commercial, cameras catch one final glance between them. It's no longer combative. But it's not casual either. It's mutual recognition. And viewers at home are already reaching for their phones. Clips are being cut. Tweets are being typed. Because what just happened wasn't just an interview. It was a moment. And moments like this, they don't stay inside a studio. They explode. And this was only the beginning. The applause fades, but the tension doesn't. As the cameras cut to commercial, the studio lights dim just slightly, shifting from performance mode to pause. But there is no real pause. Not emotionally. Not in that room. Daniel Craig remains seated, posture upright, hands folded loosely on the table. He doesn't reach for his phone. He doesn't whisper to a publicist. He simply breathes, controlled, steady, deliberate. Across from him, Sunny Hostin adjusts the stack of cards in front of her, but her eyes flicker up again, meeting his. Not confrontational this time. Assessing. Professional. The producers huddle just off camera. You can almost sense the debate happening in hushed tones. Do we lean into it? Do we pivot? Do we cool it down? Because what just unfolded wasn't scandal, but it was electricity. The kind daytime television rarely captures without someone storming off. And no one stormed off. Yet, when the countdown begins, 5, 4, 3, the studio tightens again. The applause sign flashes. The audience obeys. Smiles reappear. But something has changed. We're back with Daniel Craig. One of the co-hosts says brightly, almost too brightly. And we're having quite the conversation this morning. A ripple of laughter. Daniel nods politely. Sunny leans in. I want to stay on this for a moment, she says. Her tone is calm, but it carries weight. Because this isn't just about one character. It's about legacy. Legacy. That word hangs. Daniel's expression shifts almost imperceptibly. Bond isn't just a role. It's history. It's cinematic mythology. It's a mantle worn by few and scrutinized by millions. You redefined an icon, Sunny continues. But do you think that icon needed dismantling more than redefining? There it is, sharper than before. The audience stiffens again. Daniel doesn't rush. He never rushes. I believe, he begins, voice steady, that dismantling without understanding can be reckless. Sunny's brow lifts slightly. Reckless? Yes, he says calmly. These characters, these myths, exist because they reflect something enduring. You don't tear them down. You evolve them. Sunny crosses her hands on the table. But evolution implies progress, she replies. And some argue progress hasn't gone far enough. The co-host beside her glances between them like a spectator at a tennis final. Daniel's jaw tightens slightly again, but this time there's no defensiveness in his eyes. Only conviction. Progress isn't a straight line, he says. It's layered, complicated, sometimes contradictory. Sunny nods slowly. And do you believe your version of Bond was progressive? A beat. Yes. The answer is firm. Because, she presses. Daniel leans forward slightly, shoulders squared. Because he felt pain. Because he fell in love and lost. Because he wasn't invincible. Strength without emotional exposure is hollow. There's a murmur of agreement from parts of the audience. Sunny doesn't disagree outright. But emotional exposure, she counters, doesn't erase systemic themes. The power structures remain. Now the conversation isn't about movies. It's about ideology. One of the co-hosts tries to soften it. I mean, it is still an action franchise. Sunny nods but doesn't retreat. And action franchises shape cultural fantasies, she adds. Daniel's eyes narrow slightly, not in anger, but in focus. Are we holding storytellers responsible for fantasy, he asks quietly, or for reality? Sunny answers without hesitation. For the line between them. Silence. You could hear a pin drop in that studio. Daniel studies her for a moment. Not as an opponent, as an equal. He says slowly, when I took the role, there were people who said I was wrong for it. Too blonde. Too rough. Too different. A soft laugh from the audience. I was criticized before I even began. If we had dismantled the character entirely, there would have been nothing left to examine. Sunny listens carefully now. And yet, she says, you changed him. Yes, Daniel replies. From within. That lands. The phrase echoes. From within. Sunny's fingers tap lightly against the table. So you believe change works best inside the system? Daniel holds her gaze. I believe lasting change rarely comes from erasing history. It comes from confronting it. The tension shifts again, not hotter but deeper. The conversation is no longer about whether he's right or wrong. It's about philosophy, method, approach. A woman in the audience nods visibly. Another shakes her head. This is live television, but it feels like a courtroom crossed with a film symposium. Sunny exhales softly. I respect that perspective, she says. But I also believe confrontation sometimes requires disruption. Daniel gives the faintest hint of a smile. And artists disrupt differently than activists. There's a flicker of surprise on Sunny's face, just a flicker. You don't see yourself as an activist? She asks. Daniel pauses. I see myself as a storyteller. The simplicity of it cuts through the noise. Sunny studies him carefully. And if the story reinforces harm? Daniel doesn't flinch this time. Then criticize it. Debate it. Improve it. But don't silence it. That word, silence, hits heavier than anything said so far. The audience reacts audibly now. Some clap. Some murmur. Sunny's expression hardens just slightly. No one here is calling for silence, she says evenly. I didn't say you were, Daniel replies, equally calm. Another beat. The moderator steps in gently. This is why we love live television, she jokes, trying to diffuse the mounting seriousness. But the moment refuses to dissipate. Because what's unfolding isn't hostile. It's honest. Sunny leans back now, folding her arms loosely. You know, she says, her voice softer, I appreciate that you're not giving us rehearsed answers. Daniel tilts his head slightly. I don't rehearse my beliefs. A ripple of applause breaks out again. And that's when something unexpected happens. Sunny smiles, fully this time. Well, she says, neither do I. The audience laughs. But beneath the humor, there's acknowledgement. They've both drawn lines. They've both defended their ground. And neither has yielded. Yet instead of exploding, the tension has crystallized into something sharper. Mutual respect forged through friction. Still, the atmosphere is electric. Social media is already igniting. Viewers at home are clipping the exchanges. Headlines are drafting themselves in real time. Daniel Craig pushes back. Sunny Hostin challenges Bond legacy. Fiery debate erupts on The View. And inside that studio, the segment isn't over. The producer signals there's time for one more question. Sunny glances down at her card. Then back up. Daniel, she says quietly, last question on this. Do you think audiences are ready for a completely different kind of hero? The room tightens again. Daniel considers. Absolutely, he says. A pause. But different doesn't mean sanitized. Sunny nods slowly. And it doesn't mean untouchable, she adds. Their eyes meet again. Not combative now, but charged. Because what just happened wasn't a shouting match. It was a duel of ideologies, measured, intelligent, unflinching. And as the applause rises to close the segment, there's an unspoken understanding in that room. This conversation is not finished. It's only just begun. The applause swells again as the segment officially wraps, but no one in that studio feels finished. The cameras pan wide, capturing smiling faces, nodding hosts, a polished transition to the next topic. But beneath the surface, the air still hums. It's the kind of energy that lingers after lightning strikes. No visible damage, yet everything smells faintly of ozone. Daniel Craig sits back as the conversation shifts briefly to lighter ground. Upcoming projects, a humorous anecdote from set, a self-deprecating joke about aging in action roles. The audience laughs. The rhythm returns. But something has shifted permanently. Sunny Hostin watches him differently now. Not as a prosecutor lining up questions. Not as a host seeking a headline. As an equal who met resistance and found substance. The moderator smiles brightly. Before we let you go, Daniel, I'm curious. After closing the chapter on Bond, do you feel freer? Or more scrutinized than ever? A safe question. Or at least it seems that way. Daniel considers, fingers lightly brushing the edge of the table. Both, he says. Freedom always invites scrutiny. Sunny tilts her head slightly. Because people want to know what you stand for without the character shielding you. There's no sharpness in her voice now. Just curiosity. Daniel nods slowly. When you wear an icon, he says, you can hide inside it. When you step away, the spotlight shifts. It's no longer about the role. It's about you. The audience quiets again. Not tense this time, but attentive. And are you comfortable with that? Sunny asks. A subtle pause. Comfortable isn't the word, Daniel admits. But necessary. The vulnerability in that answer lands differently than anything before. Sunny notices. Necessary in what sense? He exhales, thoughtful. We live in a time where public figures are expected to define themselves clearly. Politically, socially, morally. Silence is interpreted as complicity. Speech is interpreted as allegiance. There it is. The unspoken undercurrent finally spoken aloud. Sunny folds her hands calmly. And do you feel that's unfair? Daniel's eyes flicker toward the audience for just a moment before returning to her. I feel it's complicated. A murmur ripples softly. Sunny doesn't interrupt. I'm an actor, he continues. My job is to explore human contradiction. But sometimes people want certainty. Clear lines. Heroes and villains. Sunny nods faintly. And you don't believe in clear lines? Daniel offers the faintest half-smile. I've played enough gray characters to know the world isn't black and white. A few audience members clap lightly. Sunny leans forward again, not aggressively, intently. But when real-world issues are at stake, she says, gray can feel like avoidance. There it is again. Not a strike. A probe. Daniel doesn't recoil. You're asking whether neutrality is a privilege, he says quietly. Sunny holds his gaze. I'm asking whether influence comes with obligation. The room stills once more. This isn't about Bond anymore. This is about responsibility. Daniel's voice lowers slightly, but it remains steady. I believe influence comes with awareness, he says. Obligation is more complex. Artists can speak. They can advocate. But they can also create space for reflection rather than instruction. Sunny's eyes sharpen, not in hostility, but in intellectual engagement. Reflection is powerful, she acknowledges. But instruction can protect people. Daniel nods once. And art can humanize them. The exchange is slower now. Less heat. More weight. One of the co-hosts jumps in gently. I think what you're both saying is that storytelling and activism don't have to compete. Sunny glances sideways briefly, then back at Daniel. Unless they do, she adds softly. A slight ripple of nervous laughter moves through the crowd. Daniel's expression doesn't change. Conflict isn't always destructive, he says. Sometimes it clarifies. Sunny studies him for a long moment. You're not afraid of conflict, are you? The question hangs. It feels personal now. Daniel pauses. No, he answers simply. Another beat. But I don't chase it. Sunny's lips curve faintly. And yet here we are. That line draws a bigger reaction. Laughter mixed with applause. Daniel's smile appears again, brief but genuine. And yet here we are, he echoes. There's a different energy between them now. The sharp edges have softened, not dulled but refined. The producer signals they're nearing the end of the hour. The moderator shifts into closing mode. Daniel, thank you for engaging with us so openly today. It's been stimulating, Daniel replies dryly. The audience laughs louder this time. Sunny turns to him one final time before the wrap. I do appreciate the dialogue, she says. Truly. And for the first time since the clash began, there's no tension in her tone. Only sincerity. Daniel meets her eyes again. And I appreciate the challenge. That word lands gently now. Not as confrontation. As respect. The applause sign flashes brightly. The audience rises slightly in their seats, clapping more enthusiastically than before. What they've witnessed wasn't scandal, but it was rare. Two public figures disagreeing without collapsing into outrage. Two strong voices refusing to retreat, yet refusing to attack. As the cameras pull back and the theme music begins to rise, there's a final glance exchanged between them. Not a stare down. Not a duel. Something quieter. Understanding. But outside the studio, the story is already mutating. Clips of their eye contact circulate across platforms. Freeze frames of Daniel's tightened jaw. Screenshots of Sunny's unflinching gaze. Headlines exaggerate tone. Tweets slice context into fragments. Craig snaps back. Hostin grills Bond star. Awkward clash goes viral. Inside the studio, they shake hands. It's brief. Firm. Professional. But online, the narrative is no longer in their control. And by the time Daniel exits the building, stepping into the sharp daylight beyond the studio doors, his phone is buzzing in his pocket. Not with one notification. With hundreds. The debate has escaped the room. And it's about to become something much bigger than either of them expected. By the time Daniel Craig's car door closes outside the studio, the moment has already fractured into 1,000 versions of itself. Inside the building, the applause fades. Crew members move quickly, resetting chairs, adjusting microphones, preparing for the next segment as if nothing seismic just happened. That's the nature of live television. Intensity 1 minute, routine the next. But in the control room, producers are replaying the footage. Not the jokes. Not the light banter. The stare. That locked, unblinking exchange between Daniel Craig and Sunny Hostin. They replay it in slow motion. The slight tightening of his jaw. The subtle lift of her eyebrow. The pause before he said, "Are we holding storytellers responsible for fantasy or for reality?" They know what they have. Not chaos. Not scandal. Something more valuable. A moment. And moments are currency. Outside, Daniel's phone vibrates again. And again. And again. His publicist glances at her screen, eyes widening slightly. "It's trending," she murmurs. "Already?" Daniel asks quietly. Clips are everywhere. Across social media, the debate is splitting audiences into camps. One clip isolates Sunny's line. Fiction shapes culture. Culture shapes behavior. Another spotlights Daniel's response. If we only portray perfect people, we tell dishonest stories. Each fragment is stripped of its surrounding nuance. Comment sections ignite. Sunny demolished him. Craig stood his ground. Finally, a real debate on daytime TV. Why can't actors just entertain? The narrative splinters further by the hour. Back inside the studio, Sunny Hostin sits in the dressing room, makeup lights still warm against her face. Her phone buzzes too. Text messages. News alerts. Group chats exploding. One message reads, "That was intense." Another, "You went hard." She exhales slowly, scrolling through the reactions. Some praise her for holding a Hollywood icon accountable. Others accuse her of attacking a guest unnecessarily. Sunny sets the phone down. She isn't new to this. She's been in courtrooms. She's been in political firestorms. But this felt different, because it wasn't political theater. It was philosophical collision. And now the world is choosing sides. By evening, entertainment outlets are running headlines. Fiery exchange on The View sparks debate over masculinity in film. Opinion columns dissect the conversation. Cultural commentators analyze tone and body language as if decoding a diplomatic summit. Was Daniel defensive? Was Sunny too aggressive? Was it necessary? Was it overdue? Clips of Daniel Craig, forever associated with James Bond, now circulate not with explosions or car chases, but with intense eye contact across a glass table. The irony isn't lost on anyone. The man who played a spy trained to maintain composure under pressure had just demonstrated that same discipline. Not with a weapon, but with words. Late that night, Daniel sits alone in a quiet hotel room. The city hums faintly outside. He scrolls through the footage himself. He watches the moment their eyes lock. He studies his own expression, not searching for regret, searching for truth. Did he speak clearly? Did he say what he meant? In another part of the city, Sunny does the same. She rewatches the clip where she says, "Sometimes those look the same." She remembers the split-second silence after it left her mouth. The weight of it. She knows some viewers will call it bold. Others will call it confrontational. But she also knows something else. It was honest. The next morning, daytime news programs replay the segment. Radio hosts debate it. Podcasts analyze it frame by frame. Cultural critics frame it as a symbol of a larger tension: art versus accountability, expression versus responsibility. And through it all, neither Daniel nor Sunny releases a statement. No clarification. No apology. No escalation. That silence becomes its own statement. 3 days later, Daniel appears at a film event. Reporters shout questions not about his new project, but about the clash. "Do you regret what you said? Were you offended? Did it get too heated?" He pauses before answering. "I respect thoughtful dialogue," he says simply. That's what it was. Across town, Sunny addresses it on air. "Disagreement doesn't equal disrespect," she says calmly. "If we can't question art, we can't understand its impact." Clips of those responses spread too. But something unexpected begins to happen. The narrative shifts. Instead of outrage, conversations emerge. Long-form discussions online dissect both sides thoughtfully. Film scholars weigh in. Cultural commentators reference the exchange as an example of civil disagreement in an age addicted to shouting matches. Universities use the clip in media ethics classes. The stare becomes symbolic, not of hostility, but of engagement. And that's the part no headline predicted. Because what happened when Daniel Craig locked eyes with Sunny Hostin wasn't an explosion. It was ignition, not destruction. Illumination. Two public figures refusing to dilute their beliefs for comfort. Two professionals choosing intensity over indifference. The aftermath proves something deeper than viral fame. Audiences are hungry, not just for drama, but for substance. Weeks later, the moment still circulates. Not as scandal, as reference. People quote their lines in essays, in debates, in comment sections where strangers argue about storytelling and social responsibility. And somewhere in that swirl of opinions, the original eye contact remains frozen in digital memory. A reminder: conflict doesn't have to be cruel. Challenge doesn't have to be chaos. And sometimes the most powerful clashes are the ones where no one storms off. Because they stayed, they listened, they pushed back, and they held their ground. So now we turn it to you. Was Daniel Craig right to defend storytelling without apology? Was Sunny Hostin right to demand accountability from influence? Or was the truth somewhere in the tension between them? Tell us what you think in the comments below. And if you crave more explosive cinematic stories from inside the world of celebrity power plays and unforgettable confrontations, subscribe to Stage View right now. Because the next lock stare, the next live television clash, the next moment that stops a studio cold, is only one story away.